What character would want to die after seeing their fan base? The Sonic fandom is always at its own throats. The big reason for this is down to Sega. In the early 90s, when the games first started coming out, to make them more appealing to as wide an audience as possible, there was a conscious effort to avoid putting any story text in the game and let all of it be put into manuals as each of the local offices of Sega saw fit. This meant that, from the day it launched, Sonic actually had two main continuities, the story as it was known in Japan, where Sonic fought Dr. Eggman, and the one from the West, where Sonic fought Dr. Robotnik. But Sega also licensed the property out for comics, TV shows and books. If you were alive in the early 90s, you might remember that there were two unrelated Sonic cartoons that aired at the same time, the first being The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, that's the one with Scratch and Grounder, a goofy Looney Tunes-like cartoon, and the second simply being titled Sonic the Hedgehog, that's the one with Sally Acorn, a more serious and darker cartoon. This was only the beginning of the continuity sprawl. To date there has been 5 TV shows, with a 6th upcoming, 3 separate comics in English, there were additionally a couple of manga, and a French-language comic that didn't get very far, 2 movies, one which was a failed pilot for an anime in 1996, and numerous other books, all with their own continuity on top of the games themselves. But then you have to combine this with the fact that it's a property designed for kids that has been running for 30 years. This means so many titles have the potential of being anyone's first Sonic game, and thus, depending on your age, you might have started with the Mega Drive titles in the 90s, or the adventure titles from the early 2000s, or Sonic 06, or even something as recent as Forces from 2017. Accordingly, because any title can be someone's first, this means people have different experiences. Some people love the 2D over the 3D, some want them to make titles like Sonic Adventure again, some want them to bring in characters from the comics or TV shows and so on. Because game quality is inconsistent, every suggestion is made to improve things. There are 3 other factors to consider to understand how messed up the fan base is. The first is that it's a series full of easy-to-draw animal characters. This means that it's a staple for a lot of furry porn, as any amateur furry artist can draw the characters in whatever situation they want. Of course, this also means that every weird furry adjacent kink also gets drawn, and considering that every kink is furry adjacent, you end up with a lot of weird shit. The second is that, due to its nature as a cartoon franchise with characters that are one-dimensional archetypes with clear and expressive faces, a lot of people on the autistic spectrum tend to latch onto it as their obsession, and some of these obsessive fans can get a bit carried away with their reactions and overly hostile/defensive about Sonic, alongside making a lot of the non-fetish weird Sonic fan content. There is also a subset of ironic Sonic fans who love the series not for what it is, but love to mock what it is and all the fan content created for it. They love the weirdness of it, like the time Sonic Team decided to turn Sonic into a warhog, and making mocking fetish art of weird fetishes they themselves don't even have just to mock the notion. This leaves the fandom massively fractured. No one can agree what's good or what's bad, people like different things about the series as a whole, and everyone constantly fights about what even good was, much less how to fix the bad, assuming the bad ever needed fixing. It's not always good. There are plenty of examples of bad music. Chronicles soundtrack was butchered to high heaven, probably a symptom of the EA buyout affecting the game's development. The intentional retro sound of Sonic 4 episodes I and 2 are hit or miss, and the options music of Sonic Spinball is considered by many to be a form of torture. This is believed by some to be a programming error. That said, there is good in most of the games of the series, even the worst titles have some redeeming music. Not just date, they are soulmates that have the sexy sex. All the time. It's an entire entity of incestuous/fanfic that spawned the whole modern Omegaverse subgenre. It can really only be compared to yaoi manga or BL dramas in scope, a vast library of male porn directed to and created by mostly teen girls and women. It's truly a fascinating and bizarre display of human sexuality for an outsider looking in. I hate how so many people jumped on the Pink Diamond is Evil bandwagon while simultaneously embracing her abusers as cinnamon rolls who just needed to be taught better manners. White, blue and yellow were literal space tyrants who slaughtered countless life forms to expand their empire, would routinely kill or mind-wipe their own subjects for stepping out of place, and experimented on the semi-conscious corpses of their own fallen soldiers to create a planet-destroying mega-weapon. Steve Rogers. There are a surprising number of white supremacists and Nazis who love the Steve Rogers Captain America because he's a white, strong, star-spangled, war vet, without all the nasty PTSD they hate to talk about, and seen as a hero. They get real mad when you bring up that Cap was literally created to fight and kill Nazis, and that he was an enemy of the KKK and white supremacists in general. It's the same really weird obsession cops have with Punisher, except Punisher wouldn't kill himself, he'd go out and kill every cop that has a thin blue line and Punisher sticker. Barely has to do any recon for targets, they did it all for him. Not only was he created by two Jewish nerds, as were most comic characters in those days, but he was created with a purpose, he fit in Hitler's ideal person. Strong muscular man, blonde hair, blue eyes, a real Aryan specimen. However, his values were the complete opposite of Hitler's and the Nazis. There was even a story in one comic in the 70s, I think, where a villain brought out different heroes' unconscious biases and prejudices. However, it didn't work on Cap because it turned out he had no unconscious biases or prejudices. Cheesy as hell, again, probably the 70s, but you get the idea. I like Draco because if you really dive into his backstory and motivations, his story changes completely. I think he really had a lot of potential which was thrown away by she who shall not be named, unsurprising but still frustrating. However, the insane amount of people who think he's their little baby who can't do any wrong and was just misunderstood the entire time and shouldn't be held accountable at all. WTFS. I have the perfect answer for this question, in the form of a story. Once in Japan I was looking for gunpla and had wandered into what seemed like a huge toy store, with up to 7 floors. Every floor had a different category of goods, whether games, action figures, or all-around merch. Well, I stumbled into what seemed like the manga section and thought, cool, might as well check it out because there were posters of anime characters I recognized. Unfortunately, I did not scrutinize the posters well enough because had I done so, I would have noticed immediately that the characters were, A, solely male, B, not drawn as they normally were, and C, had interesting poses but were otherwise fully clothed. As I studied the shelves searching for the same familiar characters that had caught my eye, I ended up at a display which had a whole shelf full of manga. Faces of My Hero Academia characters greeted me from behind a huge display, on which rows and rows of comics were filled, with their covers visible. Only then did I come to the horrifying realization that these were not official pictures, because the characters were intertwined in ways that their canon selves never would have dreamed of. I had never felt filthier in my whole life. For a brief minute I thought I was going to be arrested for doing something illicit, even though I'd stumbled across it accidentally. I quickly scurried away toward the down escalator, hoping I wouldn't be seen. Fuck it, the gunpla wasn't worth it. Better get out now before someone gets a pic of me and posts it online. The store was a fucking maze though, and in my panic to get to the exit I wound up crossing several more aisles that made me wish I'd gone blind. Because there were several shelves more just dedicated to bakugo porn, there was decaporn and todoroki porn too, but for whatever reason bakugo smut seemed to outnumber theirs by a wide margin. Dunno why. I didn't stop to think, just disagree. She knows exactly who her base is and caters to them. Idealistically, me and her have a lot of the same views. But I find her pretty off-putting, and her fans think that it must be sexism or something. Like, if you dare criticize her, you are an awful person and are probably racist and misogynistic. And frankly, while I do think plenty of her actual enemies in politics are this way, I think she plays it up a lot. See, Ranbu from the Dream SMP. From what I've seen, Ranbu as a streamer seems like a decent and genuine guy, and I wouldn't wish anything bad on him. But the fanbase sort of worships his character on the SMP, which I think is weird. They are sort of infantilizing him too. So I think it would be sort of funny if his character canonically died just to see the fanbase lose their mind. Again, no malice towards Ranbu himself. Draco Malfoy. All of his fans are dirty muggles. Many fan works including him have him drastically changing his worldview. Most works including him have him having a sexual and/or romantic relationship with one of his least favorite people. A good deal have him in a relationship with Hermione, a fucking mudblood. Then, of course, as with any sufficiently large fandom, there are plenty of works where he fucks his mother, father, fanon, godfather, or engages in innumerable fringe fetishes. And again, these are all ideas come up with by muggles. Goro Akaki from Persona 5 Royal. Definitely. A lot of people adore him and ship him with Joker, which I personally do. Although, people love him for who he is and not for the facade he puts on for a majority of the game. He would want to die from the constant hugs though. Everyone in his fan base would give him hugs. Fandom equals putting together people who have only one thing in common, that's it. I love Digimon and Pokemon, but I'm pretty sure some Pokemon and some Digimon fans would just hate me for liking both. Fandoms are almost like cults, with the difference that in most cases there aren't even common values there, you just like something. Tell me, which character would be proud of their fan base without any exceptions? The God Emperor of mankind. Dude has had to watch his people's culture become anathema to everything he ever stood for over the last 10k years, but he can't do anything about it except observe, so I guess he's already seen his fan base, but I think it still applies. The doctor wouldn't want to die. He would definitely have a serious tough love get up off the couch and go do something with your life that actually makes you a better person, for God's sake speech, though. Accursed Adam. It's a podcast/interactive story about a cannibal killer, and his fandom believes he is real to the point they will slander, bully and try to dox you if you say anything about it not being real. It's a fucking trip and it's also scary. User Avatar. Level 1. TK Thunder. 7H. Not a character, but if I could press a button and end all of gaming culture, but the trade-off was that video games of any kind no longer existed, I would do it in a fucking heartbeat. And I love playing video games. Are we not going to talk about Sans from Undertale? Not only does their fan base seem to go on for miles at a time, with thousands of AUS that he was apparently studying for in his own universe, but to know he is shipped with almost every single one would probably make himself end it. And if that wasn't enough, then he'd be traumatized by all the AUS where his brother dies, gets tormented in front of him and his other dimension self, not even mentioning the amalgamation O, Horror Tale O, and Floey, Sans O. It gets insane. I love all the AUS personally, by the way, so no hate at all towards them. I tried to make my own too, but if I were in Sans' shoes and got to see even a glimpse of what is his fan base, shoot, I'd want to. Right? I have gone to MLP cons and some of the plus highs there outdo Hasbro by a long shot. Not to mention the actual good, wholesome fan art and merch. It can be so amazing. Then I see the darker side of the fandom and wonder what the actual fuck is wrong with this world. See, the issue with Junko is that her hating her fan base is paradoxical, because that probably brings her despair, which makes her like her fan base. If she does like her fan base, she hates them anyways for not giving her more sweet, juicy despair, which gives her despair anyways. They get real mad when you bring up that Cap was literally created to fight and kill Nazis. Literally, the first image ever of him is him punching Hitler. The level of stupidity it would take to make any other leap in logic about his character, is fitting for people like that. I don't even know why I am surprised. Not really. I got a better one after a bit. I got a Tesla and I got matched with her again and she was like, "Oh, you upgraded." Keep in mind I had the car in my PFP, and I was like, "Yeah, I did," and after that I stopped talking and she kept bugging me. I'm now married. Draco Malfoy. All of his fans are dirty muggles. Many fan works including him have him drastically changing his worldview. Most works including him have him having a sexual and / or romantic relationship with one of his least favorite people. A good deal have him in a relationship with Hermione, a fucking mudblood. Then, of course, as with any sufficiently large fandom, there are plenty of works where he fucks his mother, father, fanon, godfather, or engages in innumerable fringe fetishes. And again, these are all ideas come up with by muggles. Goro Akaki from Persona 5 Royal. Definitely. A lot of people adore him and ship him with Joker, which I personally do. Although, people love him for who he is and not for the facade he puts on for a majority of the game. He would want to die from the constant hugs though. Everyone in his fan base would give him hugs. Fandom equals putting together people who have only one thing in common, that's it. I love Digimon and Pokemon, but I'm pretty sure some Pokemon and some Digimon fans would just hate me for liking both. Fandoms are almost like cults, with the difference that in most cases there aren't even common values there, you just like something. Tell me, which character would be proud of their fan base without any exceptions? User Avatar. Level 1. TK Thunder. 7H. Not a character, but if I could press a button and end all of gaming culture, but the trade-off was that video games of any kind no longer existed, I would do it in a fucking heartbeat. And I love playing video games. Are we not going to talk about Sans from Undertale? Not only does their fan base seem to go on for miles at a time, with thousands of AUS that he was apparently studying for in his own universe, but to know he is shipped with almost every single one would probably make himself end it. And if that wasn't enough, then he'd be traumatized by all the AUS where his brother dies, gets tormented in front of him and his other dimension self, not even mentioning the amalgamation O, Horror Tale O, and Floey, Sans O. It gets insane. I love all the AUS personally, by the way, so no hate at all towards them. I tried to make my own too, but if I were in Sans' shoes and got to see even a glimpse of what is his fan base, shoot, I'd want to